Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The United Nations recently released World Population Prospects Report, predicting that by 2050, more than half the world population will be concentrated in India, Nigeria, Pakistan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Indonesia, Egypt, and the United States. The report recommended that these countries adopt policies according to demographic projections, including assistance for children and the elderly, and employment and education opportunities for countries with a growing working age population. Joining us now to speak on policies Nigeria needs to adopt to manage the population boom is a country representative of the United Nations Population Fund, Dr. Eugene Kongnyuy. Dr. Kongnyuy, welcome to the morning show.
Thank you very much.
Good morning,
for inviting me.
Good to have you on the program. Doctor, since June 17, when the United Nations released the State of the World Population Report, there have been a lot of concerns about the growth in population, with the projection that, in fact, somewhere down the line, we could have up to about 9 billion people, occupying the surface of the earth. Now, where should the challenge really be? Is it quality or quantity? Are fears justified that the earth can just one day become too small for all of us?
Yeah, thank you for that great question. The problem with the population is the rate of growth. It's not really the size, because when the population is growing at a faster rate, more than the economic growth, then more and more people are getting poorer and poorer. And it is the situation we may face in Nigeria, where the population is growing at 3.2%, and the growth rate is around 2%. So this push more people to get poor. The population of Nigeria currently estimated at 198 million, the last year estimate. Projections shows that in 2050 it will be 400 million. It will double. If that rate continue, then we may face more poverty within the country. We are currently facing multidimensional poverty, high level of unemployment, high maternal and child mortality, and the education is also, there are many out of school. And as you rightly mentioned, the issue of quality of the population is very, very important. We have young people who are either not in school, or they go to school and do not get the right skills that match the demand in the labor market. So we need to drastically change from this. We also have climate change that is coming in to affect the whole scenario. So the current level where we are going, we may be heading to a disaster if something concrete is not done. I know that the government has put in effort into it. The government has realized this, developed a roadmap for harnessing demographic dividend in Nigeria, launched by the Vice President in 2017. And there is a lot of momentum towards this area. We feel from the United Nations that this is the right direction, it is the right path, and concrete actions need to be done in this direction.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kongnyuy. Now, of course, with Nigeria's population growth being such a factor all across the world, what particular measures is the United Nations taking to assist Nigeria in terms of real economic stability and real sustainable growth?
Yeah, to achieve sustainable growth, right? By sustainable growth, we mean the growth in which the population is not growing faster than the economic growth, and in which there is no struggle for resources. We are growing, we are not struggling to have roads, to have electricity, to have water, because the number of people outstripped the plans that are in place. So for this to happen, from the United Nations perspective, we feel that there should be family planning services available to all women and couples who want it. They should be voluntary family planning. And the leadership must be there. The government has put in a effort in this area. We would like to see more. For example, the current 2019 budget shows that the family planning budget has been cut by 80%. This is not good news because if this happens, it means that this year and next year we may not have family planning services in hospital. And if you look at a country like Bangladesh, which is smaller in population than Nigeria and poorer than Nigeria, it's actually commit $615 million US for family planning over 5 years. Meanwhile, Nigeria will commit $20 million US, which is far lower. The level of commitment needs to really, we think it needs to be much more commitment in terms of family planning, because if nothing is done in that line, then we cannot trigger the demographic dividend, which is the trigger is family planning. Then apart from that, there need to be more investment in social services, in health, to reduce maternal and child mortality. Because if people feel that their children are not going to live, there's no way that they will use family planning. They get as many as possible so that those who died and those who live, by chance, they can actually have children at the end. The level of education, we need also to, the quality of education need to improve. And by education here, I don't only mean the formal education. In fact, out-of-school education, the non-formal vocational, is quite very important. It's as equally, if not more important, a form of education, because we want Nigerian young people who have a dream. Each young person should have a dream, knows where he or she is going, and is motivated, have the drive and effort to take on the dream. If the young people do not have a future, do not see a future, certainly somebody will come in and show them the future. Somebody will come in with weird ideas, with phony ideas, and tell you that this is what you will do to get better. And that is what we are seeing with insurgency coming in, providing another vision for young people. But we need education both in school and out of school so that young people have a clear dream and fight for their dream. Indeed, I believe that if we have a good number of young people in Nigeria, 20% of young people who are driving, they will pull the country forward. And more investment of young people need to be done. If this is done, I believe in the next 10 years, there will be headlines on Nigeria. Nigeria will be driving Africa, will be driving the world. There are opportunities out there, and it's possible, and we can do it. So in that line, the young people will create jobs for others. We do startups. They are not only being trained to be employed. When they have their dream and fighting for their dream, they will start up new companies, and they will employ their peers. So Nigeria will go forward. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Kongnyuy, the 2019 State of the World's Population Report deals in part with empowerment of women, women's reproductive health decision-making and all of that. But how do you deal with such empowerment measures? How do you operationalize them? In a country like Nigeria, where there are prejudices in terms of religion, in terms of culture, and, you know, there is an overwhelming patriarchal, culture.
Yes, women empowerment is key, and I think the government is doing something in that line. More need to be done. One of the most important factors to empower women is family planning. When family planning services are available, we want voluntary family planning. You will see that more women will be taking them. In fact, 26% of women in Nigeria, reproductive age, says they want family planning services, but they don't have it. If we can provide services to these women, they will take the family planning services. It gives them the opportunity to go to school. It gives them the opportunity to have paid employment or to start up their business. And then that is the empowerment that we want. Women will be empowered if they have the right education, if they are working. So it is possible And I think that the government is fully aware of this and is going in that line, but more need to be done.
But I'd ask a question about the challenges of culture, of religion. I mean, in many communities in Nigeria, you really cannot even go and preach family planning. You are likely to be told that their religion in that area does not permit it, or that culturally Africans don't count children. And that's a major obstacle that I believe we have in Nigeria. What kind of strategies do you think can be put in place to challenge, these, established notions about family planning being, foreign?
Yes, there is a lot of social norms around family planning. That doesn't mean that we cannot achieve it. The truth is that women need it. As I said, the National Demographic and Health Survey, Nigerian Demographic and Health, has shown statistics that 1 out of 4 women need the services for family planning and do not have it. They want it and do not have it already. We can say that although religion affects family planning, religion is not the key factor. Countries which are highly religious, for example, if you take Italy, which is highly Catholic, there's a lot of family planning. More women, more than half of the women take family planning. If you take other countries like Iran, for example, which is highly Muslim, they take a lot of family planning. So we cannot claim that it is all these religions that are pulling family planning back. Indeed, I think that other factors, like the assurance that the children are going to live, drive women to take family planning. Sometimes they are not sure. If you are not sure that your child is going to live, you may not be willing to take family planning because you want to have many children so that those who die will die and those who live will live, and you have those who are living. So there are more factors going in. The religion is a factor, but it's not the only factor. But I believe that we can overcome it because it has been overcome in other countries.
Okay, sir. Now, we are about to go on a very quick break, but I'll pose a question to you and leave it with you while we go on this break. And when we come back, we can look into it. Now, of course, you mentioned the education system, which is a huge and inherent problem. But one topic that we need to speak about as well is sex education in our schooling curriculums and in our education curriculums. So I want to ask or pose a question to you, rather, on the possibilities of Nigeria ever necessarily adopting sex education into the education curriculum to ensure that children are taught from a young age like they are in many other parts of the world. But when we come back, sir, we'll get your response on that. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The country representative of the United Nations Population Fund, Dr. Eugene Kongnyuy, is still here with us on the morning show. Welcome back to the program, sir. Before we went on a break, I asked you a question with regards to education in rural areas, but then specifically our education curriculum in Nigeria that does not provide for sex education, which may be an inherent problem when we look at our population data, sir. What is your take on this?
Okay, thank you for that very important question. Education is a big problem, and I think we need to actually unlearn and learn the young people. There are many forms of education, but very often we focus only on the formal education. Yes, the formal education has limitations. The curriculum needs to be revised, updated to improve the quality of teaching. But we also have vocational education, which is equally very, very important because it gives the right skills that match the labor market. But apart from that, we need also to enable the young people to understand that education can also be safe. We are in an era where there are many more opportunities for learning than it was before. This new generation has many opportunities. You go online, there is nothing that you cannot learn online. Everything you can do online. And many of them have access to phones, to smartphones, and they do other things. How many young people who are in the university ensure that when they are on holiday, they take an internship or a volunteering job? Many do not do. They don't even know that it is important. They don't know that it is part of learning. How many we are interested in the projects in school? I was talking to my son who is going to high school. He told me he will not do a project which is optional. I told him that you must do it. Those projects are learning exercises. You must take something that you need to learn. How many, when they don't have internship or they don't have any volunteering job, they take a personal career growth research project and focus on it to learn more? These are things that we need to impact on young people. We need to enable the young people in school to know that a formal education is one part, but the other part they need to complete. The parents need to be aware about this and encourage their children. Every young person needs to have a dream. How many young people in Nigeria will you ask, what will you do in the future? They will tell you clearly where they want to go. Many do not know where they want to go. How many have a dream that I want to achieve and are passionate about that dream? We need to impact on them, let them have a dream before any person come outside and give them a different dream that will pull the country back somewhere else. So it is the right time that we give children our education, the right education. You ask a child what job do you want? He will tell you, I want anything. Anything you give me, I will do. These are hustlers. We want people who have a dream, who will tell you where they want to go and the type of job that they want to do, not anything. So that is the country that we want. The country that, from the United Nations perspective, if Nigeria build a critical mass of young people who have a dream and know where they are going, we are going to take this continent forward. There is no way Africa will go forward without Nigeria. I believe very strongly in Nigeria, and Nigeria is going to pull Africa and the continent and the world ahead. Thank you.
Doctor, the 2019 population report indicates that generally there has been low growth, about 1.12% in terms of world population in the last 5 years. But there has been more growth in developing countries, while there has been a drop in developed countries. And if you look at the 9 countries that would drive population growth, say, in the next 2 decades, they are mostly developing countries. What explains this disparity? What are the kind of lessons that developing countries can learn from developed countries in terms of population management, if there are any?
Yes, I think there's a lot that African can learn from the countries in Asia called the Asian Tigers, which are simply South Korea, the Taiwan, and the rest. Those countries, what they learn is that in Europe during the Industrial Revolution, more people were going to the industry to work, both men and women. And suddenly the fertility dropped because they didn't have time to be making children. And when that fertility dropped, what they realized was that there were more people working than the dependents. Dependents are those under 15 and above 64. So when there were more people working than the dependent, they suddenly discovered that the economy was growing faster than before. There was a lot of savings they could save and reinvest. And so that pulled the European countries out of poverty. So the Asian Tigers, when they studied that back from history, they decided to induce this. They said, we are not going to wait for another industrial revolution to come and make this happen now in our countries. We are going to induce this. And how did they do that? They make sure that family planning services were available to all women voluntarily. I bet you, if you make the services available everywhere in all health facilities, they are free and everyone has access to it, they will use it. That's the truth. The biggest problem is that these services are not available. The resources are not there to make it available, and women have to travel a long distance to have access to and have those limitations. They also make sure that the young people had the right education. They impacted skills that were required for the labor market, and ensure also that there was investment in the area of health to ensure maternal and infant mortality drop. With good economic policies that promote the private sector, these young people were able to start up new companies and employ their peers, and suddenly unemployment dropped. And this pulled this country out of poverty. They were able to develop within a shorter period than any other country has done in history. That's why they are called the tigers. And I believe that Africa can do. We can trigger instead of waiting. And we'll be able to develop faster than even the Asian tigers because we have history, we have technology. By the time they started in the 1960s, they didn't have internet and all that. We have every resources now to even shorten the time that they develop to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Now I'm going to move us on to the topic of security, which of course is not only a huge issue in Nigeria right now, but a large issue when we speak about population growth as a whole. The United Nations recommends that there needs to be 1 police officer to every 400 persons. Now, as it stands, Nigeria is currently under-policed, and by 2050, according to world data, Nigeria is going to have a population of about 450 million citizens. Now, what do we need to do in terms of policy from now to ensure that we're not only working on improving the quality of our police force, but also the quantity and the capacity of our police force? And does this tie into the state policing argument, or rather debate, that we've had up in the air for about a year or over now, sir?
Yeah, thank you for raising that question about security. The issue of shortage of police is one aspect. The truth is that when population is growing faster than we can plan for, there will be such shortage in all sectors. There are shortages of doctors, shortage of teachers, shortages in all sectors because of the rapid population growth. We cannot plan, because once you plan, by the next by the next 5 years, the population have outstripped your plan. Imagine a state with 3.5 million people. There will be 300 and something children born every day, meaning that the governor will need at least 10 classroom built every day with 20 teachers, let's say 2 teachers per classroom, recruited every day. This is not possible. And it is the same situation in policing. So the issue still goes back to the population, the rate with which the population grows. We outstrip the resources that we have. In addition to that, when population is growing faster than we can actually manage, there are also security problems associated with it, because there will be many young people who are unemployed. What will they do? They're idle. They don't have any dream of where they are going. They don't know where they are going. And it suffices for anything. They can take things, they will kidnap, they do anything, and that raises the insecurity within the country. So it is a big problem which has to be looked upon from a wider perspective of how to integrate population in development, rather than just looking in the area of policing alone. Thank you.
Doctor, I'd like to ask you, does the UNFPA, does it have, specific projects in Nigeria, and what are these projects? And what's your level of engagement with non-state actors, if there is any such engagement?
UNFPA has 3 transformative results globally and in Nigeria. We want to end maternal mortality, end unmet need for family planning, and end gender-based violence. So in Nigeria, we have a program across states. We do procure family planning contraceptives and supply it in all the states. We support different maternities to ensure that women deliver safely. We are working to ensure that women are empowered, that there is no violence against women, and that we also working with young people. We believe that young people are the drivers.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kongnyuy.
That Nigeria has.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. We're still having a conversation with Dr. Eugene Kongnyuy, the representative of the United Nations Population Fund in Nigeria. Doctor, you were trying to explain the UNFPA projects in Nigeria before, we took that quick commercial break.
Okay. Yes, I was explaining the different areas in which UNFPA is involved: family planning, maternal health, involving young people, gender-based violence. We also support the government to conduct censuses, and we don't work with non-state actors in Nigeria. We don't have access, we don't engage with them, but we work in this area. Our main purpose is to support the government to actually realize its priorities within the country. That is what we do in Nigeria.
That's brilliant, Dr. Kongnyuy. Now, of course, another great issue that we do have to bring up is that's a political instability, because what you often find in any situation of international relations is once we see political instability, we see a lot of migration. Now, this is not new to Nigeria, where our porous borders have led to our own people flooding through the borders, looking for safe havens in places where they are only finding human rights violations. Libya is a great example for that. Now, how does this also affect our population growth statistics and data? And what does the government need to do to ensure that we are providing the right human development for our people at home and not letting our people wander through the porous borders, not necessarily knowing what they're going to meet on the other side? This situation, mind you, has also led to situations whereby our doctors, for example, have flooded through to places where they believe they can prosper more. Nigeria has 5,000 doctors in South Africa today, and that is just one example that I can give. Now, this isn't a situation that we should praise, yet recently, ex-Minister of Health Dr. Chris Ngige stated that we do not necessarily need to worry as we have enough doctors in the country. How do we take situations like this, Doctor?
Okay, yeah, the situation of migration and immigration is a big problem across Africa and developing countries, not only Nigeria. And the situation arises from the fact that the young people do not see any future. And there is multidimensional poverty. It still goes to what I said before, that we need young people who have the right skills. Young people need to see the future in this country. Indeed, I see a lot of Nigeria is a mine. That is, it is a gold mine. We are sitting on it. I believe that everywhere where you see people complaining, you should see opportunities. And that's what we need to train the young people right from school to understand that each time somebody complains, they should look beyond complaint and see opportunities. And if these young people, they see opportunities and pursue their dream within Nigeria, they won't want to leave the country. And we need to give them the right education and skills, ensure that they are healthy, and provide the family planning services that will stabilize the population, and this will take the country forward. We can manage the issue of immigration, and I believe that this can be done quite easily if we put in place the right policies.
Well, Doctor, you work with the Nigerian government, and you must have also observed that in Nigeria, population is one of the most political things, that you find in the Nigerian environment. And this came up even in the last 2019 general elections. The last time Nigeria conducted population census was in 2006 or so. And Nigerians are saying, we don't even know how many we are. And that, these are just estimates, that the population census is formulaic. And the data that we get either from UNFPA or from any international organization is often disputed by the National Population Commission in Nigeria. How do we deal with this challenge? Because if we don't even know exactly how many we are, and we have to rely on international estimates or formulaic projections, how do we plan and how do we address that challenge?
Yes, as you rightly said, the last census in Nigeria was 2006. And usually population census is conducted every 10 years. So there should have been a census in 2016. And since it wasn't realized in 2016, we are hoping that the government will declare a census, and that in the next 3 years there will be a census. Because as you rightly said, we need to know how many people are out there, how many are there and where they are living, and their age distribution. Once we don't know this, we can only do projections, and projections depend on the assumptions that you put in place. The National Population Commission does the projections for the country. The United Nations does global projections, which involved all the countries. These figures may not be the same. They may vary, and some people are worried, oh, why is there a difference? The difference is based on the assumption, because we are just projecting. We are not actually stating the right figures. So to have the right figures, we need a census. And we are hoping that the government will declare a census soon.
Well, a huge part of that as well, Sarah, is the fact that the UNICEF in 2013 actually came out with a report stating that about 71 million Nigerians were not registered at birth. So we see huge problems here. But last year, we had talks about a two-child policy. Now, this was something that was mentioned and it was floating around the media. Is Nigeria going to adopt a two-child policy? We've seen this in China, whereby China adopted a one-child policy in order for them to curb, control, and sustain their population. Do you believe, and does the United Nations believe, that Nigeria needs any such policy in order for us to make sure that we keep this under wraps?
The United Nations does not believe and does not support or recommend population control by the government, stating the number of children that each family has to have. That is called population control, and it is against human rights. United Nations believe in family planning as a human right, where voluntarily each couple can decide freely the number and spacing of children that they want. Indeed, what the country needs is to make the services available. They will use it. Because sometimes people think that if services are there, they will not use it. They will use it. And that is what the Asian tigers did. Of the 6 Asian tigers in Asia, apart from China, that used the population control, none of them used, and it worked. So we believe it can work without having to put a limit on the number of children that people have to have. We need to make sure that this is a human rights issue and that we give focus on people-centered, family, individual-centered, rather than looking at it from a macro perspective where the government will decide on how many children each family should have.
Doctor, from your engagement with the Nigerian government at all levels, what kind of challenges have you faced? Do you get a sense that the government is listening, or you get a sense that the government is just going through the routine? Or what's your assessment of the quality of engagement between your agency and the Nigerian government?
Yes, I think the Nigerian government, right to the highest level, is aware of these issues and have taken concrete action to address the issues. A concrete example is the demographic dividend roadmap Nigeria launched and is currently being implemented, launched in 2017. That shows that, which is in line with the African Union demographic dividend roadmap. That shows that there are some actions being taken. Although there are actions, we are still hoping that the level of action will be strengthened and that more commitment will be made in this area. For example, we would like, for example, to see more resources put in the area of family planning, more resources put in the area of health, more resources in the area of education, and that will stimulate the young people, that the investment in young people, believe in young people. The young people are the one who will change this country. They are the startups that will create jobs. The government will not create jobs for everyone, but if the young people really have the right skills, they will create jobs for the whole country, and this country will get out of poverty very soon.
Now, namely, one of the areas of focus of the United Nations that you mentioned is gender-based violence. And one of the greatest issues that we have is trying to increase the minimum age for marriage in Nigeria today, which I'm sure is of great concern to the United Nations, not only in terms of sustaining population growth, but in terms of the necessary and human-based security and welfare of our young girls, ensuring that it's no longer compromised. What is the United Nations currently doing in this regard, Dr. Kongnyuy, if anything at all?
Yes, I think the issue also is that Nigeria is made of many states. At the federal level, I think there are policies that state that the minimum age of marriage is 18. But these have not been adopted by all states. So that's where the challenge is. So we from the United Nations believe that before the age of 18, any girl is immature to get married, to get pregnant, because any pregnancy will lead to severe complications, and we have been having complications such as obstetric fistula with urine leaking all the time after childbirth due to complications and often as a result of early childbearing. So this age is really critical for us, and we believe that these should really be implemented. These policies should be implemented and ensure that no girl should get married before the age of 18.
But how is the UN ensuring that these policies become implemented, sir? Because it's one thing for us to advocate, and this is what I find a lot, but how do we then go from advocating to enacting, pressurizing and ensuring that the government is actually listening to an international organization like the United Nations?
In the past few years, we have worked with the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development to develop the End Child Marriage strategic plan for the country. And we are also supporting the ministry and different states to actually implement these policies. It involves actually working with the gatekeepers, traditional gatekeepers, and those who actually protect the culture and the norms. These are traditional and religious leaders to actually get this done, to let them believe that this is the right thing to do, and then support, inform their followers, and give the right information to our followers so that this gets done. But we still need to see more action in terms of a legal action. We wish to see more legal action against people who go against this type of policies.
Quickly, Dr. Kongnyuy, before we begin to wrap up, there was a phrase you used earlier on that I would like you to please help shed a little light on. And that's when you said demographic dividend roadmap initiative. What exactly does that mean?
Yes, for the history, the African Union declared that Africa needs a demographic dividend and developed the continental demographic dividend roadmap. They believe that Africa needs the right population structure that will trigger economic development, as has been done in the Asian countries. So they encourage, and Nigeria signed into it, in the African Union roadmap. So back in the country developed its own roadmap of exactly what they are going to do to actually trigger the right population structure where there are more people working than the dependent that will get the country out of poverty. In that roadmap, we have key things. We have family planning is a key thing that we need to have access to, which is a trigger for demographic dividend because it triggers smaller family sizes. Currently, on the average, the Nigeria has families have 5 to 6 children on the average in Nigeria, which is far higher than in most countries that you can think about globally. So there is also health. The policy talked about health. The roadmap talked about the investing in health, because if people are dying too young, we are losing. Suppose a young person you train and is very strong and skilled. If that person dies at the age of 50, you have lost a lot. Meanwhile, in developed countries, they will live up to 80, 90, and he died too young. His skills, he has not actually put in place the skills. And then when children are dying,
Dr.
then
Kongnyuy,
people do not believe in family planning anymore. They want more children.
Dr. Kongnyuy, we'll have to wrap it here, and thank you very much for coming to the Morning Show. Thank you very much indeed.